Hello, thanks for joining Strictly Money at the News Forum. I'm your host, Saijal Patel. Welcome to a special month-long series on women and wealth. In light of Women's History Month and the upcoming International Women's Day, I felt it was only fitting to talk about the unique opportunities and challenges women face when it comes to money. Some of you may wonder why. Well, 4 years ago, I started my financial education and consultancy practice. And as part of my research, I discovered some alarming facts. I learned that women face unique challenges in building wealth, and those challenges greatly increase their chance of outliving their savings in retirement. I learned that women continue to feel misunderstood by the financial industry. And I learned that women undeniably are more financially stressed than men. Women control more than 30% of the global wealth and are creating it at a faster rate than at any time in history. Addressing the gender wealth gap is no longer an option. It's imperative. My first guest knows a lot about these facts and the financial concerns women have. Richa Arora is Senior Family Advisor at KPMG's Family Office, and she joins me now. Richa, great to have you on.
Thank you, Saijal. It's a pleasure to be here today and talking about a topic I'm deeply passionate about.
I know, you and I both, right? And so when you hear about women making this progress and at the same time they're facing these challenges, what comes to your mind?
I think, first of all, the fact that there will be a shift in influence, and it's exciting to know that women will be the new face of wealth. Thinking about, the research study that you just talked about, with women controlling more than a third of countries' wealth by 2028, the numbers paint a picture of greater power and control that will be in the hands of women. But the reality is, through my experience, are women ready? I don't think that we as women make that a top priority of our financial or overall well-being.
Yeah, I always say it's one thing to have wealth. It's a totally different thing to actually manage it well. So that's one point. And the other one is there are still a lot of women that do face challenges in building wealth, don't they? What sort of insight do you have?
Yeah, women certainly face different challenges in comparison to men. I think, the first fact, that we all talk about a lot is pay equity. So gender pay issues are certainly playing a bigger role. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in that space. Women outlive men, so I think stats say by 5 years or more, women tend to outlive their spouses, which means that they need greater planning for life emergencies and also post-retirement. They tend to juggle a lot. Us women, we have multiple responsibilities that we're juggling, childcare, there's elderly responsibilities as well. And how do we navigate all of that and still find time to focus on, the financial side of our life?
No, absolutely. And, it's one of the things which I speak to women about too. We do focus a lot on the wage gap. And what I think a lot of people aren't familiar or necessarily understand is that wage gap easily translates into a much, much bigger wealth gap because we do take time off work, right? So if we're taking time off work, we're saving less pension as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And stats say women tend to save about 30 to 40% less than men. And, just contrasting that to what the future holds, World Economic Forum goes into a study that talks about that women in retirement, will be 1.5 times more likely to live in poverty compared to men. Like, those are some scary stats. And, there needs to be a societal shift. But I also think as women, we need to challenge ourselves and, overcome some of our own sort of self-biases in terms of the fears around money.
Yeah, absolutely. Richa, we only have about 30 seconds to commercial break. How much do you think the COVID situation has changed and the impact that's had on the financial wealth of women, health of women?
I think the big thing to note is about 20,000 women just between February and October 2020 exited the workforce, just purely, because they couldn't balance childcare. So what does that mean in terms of their reentry back to
Right.
the workforce? So we can certainly explore that after the break.
All right. So we will take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Richa, before the break, we were talking about how so many women left the workforce in Canada, as we dubbed sort of this she-cession. I mean, that was certainly part of it. What kind of impact do you think that has had on the financial well-being of women?
Yeah, I think it's created more of a disparity in terms of, them feeling more financially independent because, it definitely impacted their income level. If we contrast it at work, certainly the shift in flexible working conditions, will help women re-enter the workforce so that they can juggle the additional responsibilities that they have. And then at home, women also need to start taking a bit of an interest, if they haven't already, in their personal finances. And I think over time, with flexible working conditions, with women feeling a little bit more included and being able to juggle multiple responsibilities, I'm hoping that we will see that gradual positive shift where women are not feeling like, they're left behind.
Yeah. Richa, you work with a lot of families. I know predominantly ultra high net worth families. How are women influencing the wealth in their family? What sort of decisions do they make?
I would say from my experience working with families, and my work takes me through multi-generational families, and I work with women of all different age groups and different points in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Women, I find, I'm seeing more and more women wanting to take a greater sort of lead role in either knowing the full financial picture of their family or even the desire to get involved. However, I still find women have a less confident outlook when it comes to managing wealth or their readiness for future in compared to men. Contrasting that, women play a very key role in decision making, whether it be, in terms of their children, next generation, education and planning, but also in terms of picking the right advisors for their family. So it's important to empower them with the right financial literacy to be able to make those right decisions. One interesting question that I ask my clients often is, what role do you play in your family? And how would you like that to shift in the future? Most times the answer is, well, I'm the peacemaker in the family, or I'm the glue.
Right.
And I revert, back to say, well, great, you serve as a chief emotional officer for your family. Interestingly, the answer that I don't get a lot of times is that I am the chief financial officer of the family. And it that's always gripped me as to how less or very rarely have I ever heard that answer. And I think that plays a huge role in them acting as sort of the role model so that even the next generation start to feel like, okay, as women in the family, this is a key role I can have.
Yeah. Solving this, I always say it's going to take a village, right? I mean, women need to, like you say, you have to play a stronger role. Financial education is a key piece to it. Systemic changes need to take place as well. What do you think is going to help move this forward? I mean, and we are seeing progress, but we're not seeing it fast enough. What do you think we need to do?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, as women, I love what you're doing in this space. I think as women in finance, we really need to advocate for ourselves and for other, women in this industry. I think with the growing share of wealth controlled by women, it certainly calls for a different approach in terms of managing their wealth. I think there needs to be a shift in society in terms of how even advisors in this field tend to make their approach more inclusive for women. I think academic institutions need to step forward in terms of offering more educational programs that are geared towards demystifying, financial topics for women in particular.
Yeah.
But I think it all kind of goes back to our overall well-being circle. I was thinking about, we put so much importance on physical, mental, and emotional well-being, but us as women, we often tend to neglect the financial in the overall wellness circle. And I think it needs to be number one in our self-care routine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And International Women's Day is coming up. The theme this year is Break the Biases. So let's hope that this conversation around financial wellness continues and we have this conversation. Richa, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate your insights.
Thanks so much for having me, Saijal.
Richa Arora of KPMG's Family Office. Welcome back to Strictly Money. Nearly 40% of women are now the primary breadwinners in Canadian homes. And in just a few years, they're expected to control nearly $3 trillion of the country's total household wealth. And yet, 70% of women say the financial sector still doesn't get them. My next guest believes this is a wake-up call, and those who ignore this influential group do so at their own peril. Judy Paradi is a marketing expert and partner at StrategyMarketing.ca, and she joins me now. Judy, it's great to have you on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Saijal.
So, Judy, you and I, we both share this mission to make sure women are getting their financial needs met. It feels like the industry is paying more attention to it. Every bank and asset manager that I see has some sort of dedicated women's initiative. Are you seeing progress, or are you still thinking that there's gaping holes?
You know what? If there was enough progress, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
True.
So the point is that there's a lot of advisors who are doing a great job, men and women are alike. But the industry itself, it still has a far ways to go. There's a lot of lip service being paid to it, and the industry still is not delivering financial advice to women the way that women are looking for it. So no, it's not gone far enough. We still have financial organizations that have said to us, women are not our niche this year.
50% of the population and not the niche, right?
Well, it's more than bizarre to say half of the population of North America is not our niche. So no, I'd say that they still have a far way to go. They're entrenched in old paradigms, and not understanding what it is, the value of women to the community, and not understanding how women view finances, which is very, very different than how men view finances. But before we continue, just a really quick caveat. Mm-hmm. Everything we say is not all women are the same. People always come to us and say, I'm a woman, I don't do that, or I'm a man and I don't do that.
Absolutely.
But not all women are the same. But these are generalities that work. So most women do see finances very differently than men.
And I do want to get to that, Judy. But what do you think the crux of the issue is then? I mean, surely the industry recognizes these stats and they see it.
Sure.
So what is the problem? Is it that they're not making the effort to understand? Is it women, in fact? Because there's a lot of women who also don't want to get involved with the industry too, right?
Yeah. So it's definitely two-pronged. From the industry perspective, think about it. This is an industry that for hundreds of years has been incredibly successful. With this particular paradigm of men serving men in a certain way. Very, very hard to turn this battleship around. There's a lot of good intention, but as you well know, entrenched behaviors are extremely difficult. So we have men that say, yeah, I get it. I get women, and they'll call us gals. So they really don't entirely 100% get it. Women, on the other hand, there is still very much a residual fear of finances. They aren't brought up with it in the same way. Little girls are talked to about finances a lot less than little boys. And there's this sort of mystical idea that finances are too difficult. It's all about math. I don't have time. I can't grasp this.
Mhm.
And in some ways, it's really to the financial organization's benefit to keep it a bit mysterious. You need us. We are the ones that are going to support you and save you.
Yeah.
And that's a paradigm that women don't love.
Yeah.
It's you're not the white knight rescuing me, and it's not all about it's more like the legal or the medical industry.
Right.
You're the expert, you're the only one that can do it. As a woman, as an investor, you need us. So I think there is definitely that great divide still.
Yeah. We only have about 20 seconds to commercial break. We know what it costs women to not get the right advice. What is it costing the industry to not serve women?
Trillions of dollars. I mean, this is really where the old adage, you snooze, you lose kind of situation. The advisors that get it are going to, the other hand is they're going to do extremely well, because even now we find women who say, I found an advisor, I love him. And
they're going to stick with him.
And he's bombarded. He has more business than he knows what to do with. So it costs the industry trillions.
Yeah. Welcome back. Judy, what do women want from the advisory experience, and how do advisors meet women's needs? What do they need to consider?
Okay, so what advisors have to understand, that it's not about them. It's not about their little suitcase full of products and services that they're selling to women. It's all about women. It's all about what she wants. And women don't look at finances in the same way generally that men. Men often talk about their rate of return or how much money I have. Women look at money as a way of living, of what it can do for them. Can they realize their dreams? And their dreams might be buying a car, it might be paying for a house, or it might be retiring in Italy. It really doesn't matter. So advisors have to look at it sort of backwards and connect the dots between what is it that she wants, and that predicates a relationship with that person. You can't just go in and say, these are the services that we have to offer. These are the services of my financial organization. We're the best in the industry. Women are very astute shoppers. They look at things and say, what is the value to me? What is this going to bring? So they're very much looking for a relationship.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because sometimes I have found that, it might be the husband or partner, male partner, going to these meetings. But I think a lot of advisors don't recognize that behind the scenes that women are actually making a lot of these decisions.
Oh, in fact, women make 85% of the purchasing decisions.
Yeah.
And, you're absolutely right. In these meetings, especially when it's a woman and a partner, quite often the meeting, she'll sit back and not participate in the meeting, and not because she's stupid, not because she's not interested. It's just not being presented in the way that makes any sense to her. So they quite often try and absent themselves. We frequently have advisors saying to us, I try and get the wife involved. I try and get her to come, but she doesn't. And we say, it's because you're not doing it right.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't have time. So sometimes advisors should be thinking about going to their home.
Oh,
and chatting
absolutely.
As well. Yeah,
absolutely. Again, over and over, I have to say to advisors, it's not about you, it's about her. So when you do meet someone, where do you want to meet? How do you want to meet? What works the best for you? And if you can't meet that criteria, then you really shouldn't be an advisor. Certainly not, having women as clients.
Judy, do you think the answer is having more female advisors? Because I know this is a problem that the industry does face.
Okay, that's a really good question. When Paulette and I first started our consultancy a number of years ago, and we did a survey with a lot of women, and we said, do you care whether you have a male or female advisor? And overwhelmingly, they said they didn't care, which was interesting. And these tended to be probably at that time, maybe a little bit older women or mature anyway, who were investors. That is really changing a lot. Those women used to say, I don't care as long as I have someone I can relate to. Now, younger women, and by younger, I mean, investor age, 30, 40, 50, they are more inclined, in fact, very much more inclined to say, you know what, I'm going to consciously look for a female advisor because she already starts from an equal ground, understanding me, understanding my stresses as a woman. So that is changing, and the industry has to wake up to that. Those numbers are still 15%. They're very, very low in terms of number of female advisors.
Judy, for those women who are watching, how do they pick an advisor? What are a couple of things that they should look for? We only have about 45 seconds left.
Yeah, it's not anything in particular. Talk to friends, talk to relatives, talk to people who have advisors that they're happy with, but always remember, you are the consumer. Feel free to interview as many as you want. Ask them to come to your home. If they don't, then don't bother if they can't be bothered doing that. Ask them questions. Tell them about what your goals are. Ask them how they plan to work with you. And feel free, like I said, to interview several. You are the consumer. You have every right to do that. Don't be intimidated, because we find that advisors will come in sort of very bombastic with their story, and women get intimidated. They feel like they have to say yes. You're the expert. You know what's best for me. But they don't. You know what's best for you.
Okay. Thanks so much for coming on today, Judy.
Entirely my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Judy Paradi of StrategyMarketing.ca. Thanks for watching Strictly Money. Stay well, stay wise, and stay wealthy.